There was a change though with 2012. Like before, like generally only ugly chicks served missions, but then after that, it changed. Who's
So we're
out there.
gonna flirt to convert.
So you know what? Like some people thought of Mormons as the original pickup artists. Here's the thing, it says like in the Bible, like we're not supposed to marry out of the covenant.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Midnight Mormons. I am your host, Cardinellis, and today I am joined in the studio by Physiognomy Man, the Dan the Man, Speed Read Dan, and our good friend, BT Whitbeck, Apostle 2027, Brad Whitbeck, friend of the show. And we've got an interesting problem here. Our buddy here, Dan, is getting chased by the ladies. And many of these ladies that have been smitten by his dashing good looks and his suave and debonair, are some non-member girls. And he's kind of getting serious with some of these girls. And I shouldn't say some of these girls in case one of them listens, because it actually only is one. You know what I'm saying? But the age-old question comes up: to date or not date the member or non-member of the church. And what advice we would give here to Brad. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? I don't know. What do you think? First, who should go first, Dan or Brad? I don't know. Tell us what's going on, Dan, and then we're gonna give you our opinions.
Context here.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. In terms of the church, we're very insular right now. We're very much in a world where we just know people in our ward. We don't even really know our neighbors anymore. We don't really know like who else is out there. And that's not very good for missionary work. Like that's not very good. How are we supposed to be, a light on a shining hill?
So if
we don't even know, like, who's out there?
So we're gonna flirt to convert.
Yeah, I was not gonna say has dating just become a missionary program? It's like,
well, okay,
it has been used as that.
It has been used as that. There were some, naughty, disobedient missionaries.
Is that why they always call the hot chicks to serve in Temple Square?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, though, like there was a change though with 2012. Like before, like generally only ugly chicks served missions, but then after that, it changed.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, that is so savage.
No,
that's not true. There was
100%.
plenty of hot chicks.
Okay, no, there were, but I'm just saying there were few and far between.
Oh man, you are just wow. You're not gonna do a good job getting those chicks, man. But anyway, keep going, bro. Keep going.
Okay, but anyways, there have been a lot of missionaries who have gone back, out to their mission fields and have married someone, or essentially what they've done is flirt to convert. So, and it's something that's been, done since, the beginning of time. Like, there's so many anti-Mormon rags and books and magazines back in the 19th century and even into the 20th century that claim that, they're these dashing Mormon chads. And like they're really, really good looking, and they're really like charismatic, and they're really like,
they're here to steal
seductive.
Your women.
They're here to steal our women. So the idea, in England was that, all these Mormon boys from Utah, they're here to steal our women and take them back as polygamous brides.
Oh gosh.
So you know what? Like some people thought of Mormons as the original pickup artists, but in the 21st century, it's kind of unfortunate because now we're just like kind of viewed as like, boring, milk toast, cucked, whatever you want to call it.
I love the gradations there. Boring, milk toast, cucked. Like, whoa,
jeez, that's horrible. So, okay, so. What's the dilemma then, bro? So.
Well, here's the thing. It says like in the Bible, like we're not supposed to marry out of the covenant. Like, Abraham made it very clear to Isaac that he was supposed to marry, that special, Rebecca, and then, with Isaac, with Rachel and Leah, and, they were supposed to keep it in the tribe.
Okay, so now you've got this really hot girlfriend that you totally did.
And just while we're on the Bible subject, you also have negative examples, right? Where you have Solomon taking wives who were not of the house of Israel.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then
Like 300 wives, 700 concubines, or something like that.
What?
Solomon,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Solomon had
Whoa.
300 wives. He had, he was sleeping
Solomon
with
the
1,000 women.
necromancer, like the
Yes.
OG Solomon.
Yes, he was sleeping with 1,000 women.
What?
And they turned him to unknown gods is part of it, to strange gods. And so there's some of this that is like tied into, hey, you need to marry within the covenant, otherwise you're going to be in trouble eternally,
Okay, so Dan's got a hot girlfriend now. She's not a member of the church. And a lot of people would say, hey, like that can get dicey because being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is, it's very dedicated thing. It's not just like a part-time gig. It's a lot of who you are, for lack of a better term. Okay. So you want your partner to be as compatible with you as you can. So the natural inclination would be to say, okay, well, you probably want to date somebody that's within your same belief structure so that you guys are all on the exact same page the whole time, right? You have to balance that, though, with the fact that you fall in love with who you fall in love with, as the director of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind reminds us. And all the greatest movies are about people from different backgrounds coming together. And
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have something to say about that.
Okay.
That you fall in love with who you fall in love with.
Uh-huh.
It's terrible logic, it's circular, doesn't make any sense. You fall in love with who you date.
Oh, so I was about to say, whatevs.
Uh-huh.
And I've got an interesting take on this. Every member of my family, close family, that got married in the church to another member of the church that got divorced was married to a member of the church first. Whereas every person in my family whose spouse joined the church married that person when they were not members of the church, and they were not members of the church they were uninterested in even learning about the church. But they prayed and they had divine confirmation that this is the person you should marry. And the Lord told them, okay, cool. This is the one you should be dating. This is the one you should be marrying. And they did it. And then those people are rock solid, awesome member converts now. So
that's awesome.
Every single person.
Well, the second part.
Yeah. Every single person in my family that got married in the temple to another cultural Mormon, unfortunately got divorced. Whereas every person that didn't marry a non-member, that person ended up converting. So my family is a weird inversion of what the statistics usually bear out.
Interesting.
So I would hate to think that some kind of cultural ism would have helped or prevented that from happening. However, the cultural isms were even stronger back then when they were, and these people were praying about it and asking the Lord about it. When the Lord gives you the direct answer, then obviously there's nothing that can stop you from doing it because you've gotten the answer from the Lord. But now back to Dan.
I got a story.
Okay.
I got a story for you.
Sweet.
So this is my grandmother who just passed away, her parents. So my great grandmother, she was born quite destitute. Her mother was the second wife of some guy who had another wife in Idaho, and he died pretty early on. I think it was only 48. Maybe he got sick or something somehow, but she was, and then her mother was with another guy, I think maybe briefly remarried, and then had another daughter, and then maybe they got divorced, or I don't even know if they were married, but whatever what happened, she was in a very destitute situation. And all of a sudden, she decided to move down to Arizona with her brother.
Okay.
And this is probably roughly about 1920 or something. And all of a sudden, there was a stake dance at the time. And for some reason, my great grandfather, who had moved there from Tennessee or Kentucky, was hanging out with some friends. And this guy, he's probably about 23 or something like that.
Okay.
And he heard okay, where's a good place, to spend a Friday night? And one of his friends said there's a Mormon church, there's a dance there, it's pretty cool. And so he came, and someone said hey, you're not allowed to smoke here. And supposedly he threw the cigarette butt down, and he met my great grandmother, and she said hey, well, I'm not interested in guys that smoke. And then
Oh.
he actually quit cold turkey.
Right there on the
Right
spot.
there on the
Dang.
spot. But so he wasn't
Nice.
interested in the church at all. But they
Hey,
dated.
hot chicks are very convincing arguments.
Yeah, okay. So they dated for a while, and for a while, like, so they went on a trip, up to, over Labor Day weekend, up to Utah, where my great grandmother lived, and my great grandmother prayed and told her, like, hey, you need to marry this guy, which was really strange because, like, he was some non-member, like he was, some slick guy who just was pretty much like a fast talker and someone who seemed really overly confident. And he's like, okay. And then he offered to take, their entire family on a road trip, which I think was just her sister and like her mom,
Okay.
to Yosemite.
Okay.
So-
Hopefully he doesn't end up being a
so,
serial
yeah.
killer or
So
something.
he didn't end up being a serial killer, but after they got back, like,
Uh-huh.
it was a whirlwind romance. He got married and then they moved back to Arizona and they had like a kid pretty like early on. And then like he still wasn't interested in the church like at all.
Okay.
He apparently had a really weird practice where he put coffee in his cereal,
Oh, yeah.
What?
like cold
What?
coffee and cereal instead of milk.
Cold coffee.
Well, at least it
into-
was cold. I was
Yeah.
thinking that's real weird. When
Okay.
It wasn't cold. then
Yeah,
it's-
okay, but anyways, he ended up getting typhoid fever,
Okay.
and he thought he was gonna die, and he was in some kind of sanitarium, and at one point, the prophet, which was Heber J. Grant,
The prophet?
the
Okay.
prophet was visiting Arizona, and at the time, like he asked one of the stake presidents, "Is there anyone that needs a blessing?" They
Okay.
said, yes, there's a member of our stake. She's not really active, but her husband is dying of like typhoid fever.
Okay.
He came to the sanitarium. He gave him a blessing. He healed him on the spot, and then he joined the church like the next week.
Oh.
D- Oh.
So they moved. They
Oh.
moved. Okay, they eventually moved to. They were pretty poor people, but they moved to like Dallas, where there weren't really very many church members. They were super active at the time, and they helped the church grow. Like they helped like bought like a church property. Like he built like the
Whoa.
church, and he ended up being like the first stake president in Dallas, which then at that point covered part of like Oklahoma and Arkansas and like a third of the state of Texas. But he was stake president for like 17 or 18 years. And so as recently
17 or 18 years?
yes, 17 or 18 years, he was stake president.
Jeez Louise. Okay.
So, and then anyways, later on, I have a great aunt who was also dying of cancer, breast cancer. And then she, like, for some reason, like Elder Faust at the time was visiting her stake
Okay, yeah.
and gave her a blessing and like asked like, okay, well, what's your maiden name? And she found out like what's her full name and found out her maiden name was Ackerson. And Elder Faust asked, wait, any relationship to Irvin Ackerson, which was, my great grandfather. And he brought up, and she said yes. And she actually said, so, the brethren were actually having, a discussion, and we came up with a list of who we thought the 100 most faithful saints were in this dispensation. And he was something like 80th or 90th on the list.
Dude, what happened to you? No, I'm just kidding. That is savage, man. That's
so
cool.
yes,
awesome,
that is
dude.
savage. So that is that is
Okay,
something
so
about
dog-
following a prompting.
Okay, so then let's just bring this back to you, dude. So, you got this chick, you think she's rad and she's cool. She's not a member, but you're feeling the vibes. I say go for it. Brad says don't because he's a judgmental person.
Well, because you need
no, I-
someone to disagree with you. No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just
So,
kidding.
Actually, okay. So I actually agree with the majority of what you've said so far, Carden.
I
maybe
think that
everything.
if you're strong, your testimony's super strong, and your connection with God is strong, you can date whoever the freaking heck you want because nobody will be able to meet you within 30 seconds realizing this is a big part of my life. And either they're down with God too or not. And if they're down with God and they're having spiritual experiences with you, then boom shakalaka. Like,
and that's
it's gonna
that's
happen.
what I wanted to say is like, look, marriage, even though like you talked about shared values, which I think is a really, really good thing to consider when it comes to marriage. But I also think that you need to consider shared expectations, right?
Like, you got to be hot because I'm hot.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know,
Yeah,
and look at Dan.
That's it. That's
He's
the only
hot.
expectation.
You know, like, let's get real. Brass tacks, dude. No, I just
But like, I think you need to have similar kinds of expectations. And like you were saying, Carden, if they know that God is important to you right off the bat, they're going to let you know pretty quickly whether that's in the cards for them or not also.
Yeah.
And I think dating is interesting because who you date changes you and you also change them. So I don't think it's healthy to say you shouldn't ever go on dates with people who aren't members of the church, because like you could end up finding these people like you guys all both just talked about, who ended up becoming incredible members of the church and blessing the lives of others. You know, like they're really, really good people and they later became good members of the church. I don't think you need to be a member of the church to be a good person, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you know
and
how
so
sorry, keep going.
Okay, so I think that like it's totally fine and you should go on dates with people who aren't members of the church. I'm totally cool with people dating members of the church, you know, or sorry, dating people who aren't members of the church.
Yeah.
I don't see anything really wrong with that. I do think, like you're saying, Carden, if you're not strong in your own faith and convictions, you're setting yourself up for being in a position where you could lose what you've got, right? You could be swayed in what you believe.
You know how I can totally tell that Speed Read Dan likes this chick is because he's sitting there super tense in his chair, afraid that by us talking about him, he's going to say something stupid that's going to screw it up with her. You know what I'm saying? So he's being like, he's keeping his cards all close to his chest and everything. Dog, tell us, man. You got to tell us, what do you like about her, dog? Come on, brag. You got a cool girlfriend.
Very classy. Very, very intelligent.
Yeah, and she's super bass too. Like, so not
super,
woke.
super bass. So one thing I want to stress again is that this is something that's a little bit tricky right now in church culture. Is there's a lot of, probably more now than ever, there's a lot of single something 30-some-year-old female members of the church. Like, it's something that there's a little bit of a crisis, to be honest. Like, think how many people there are who are mid-singles, who like they decided early on, like, I'm going to make sure, like, no matter what, it's important that like I get married in the temple. And I'm sure like that's a very noble goal. Like, that's a very worthwhile goal. And one of the things that happens though is like at some point though, there's a time limit. Like, you're not going to have children forever. Like, you know, at some point, like, you won't be able to have children. So like, and you know, children, no matter like who they're like part member families, like there's still the possibility of there being like, you know, church members in the future. So would you rather have like no children or, you know, part member family or like, you know, children who may or may not be LDS, or no children?
You know, it's interesting, but just 2 years ago, the largest demographic of the church is mid-single adults now. You know what I'm saying? Mid-single adults are or YSAs over the age of 30 or whatever, became like the largest cohesive demographic, I think, outside of just, I don't remember the exact stat, but it's something that's never happened in church culture until now. And in American society, we already have a problem with our birth rate that I blame on wokeism, secularism, and feminism, but other people just act like, oh, I don't know where this came from. Over 50% of our males in America are not reproducing. Over 50%.
That is
over
rough.
half are not reproducing. Now, I don't say that like some freaking cow herder out there that's like, oh, I don't know if next year's harvest is going to be big. We all reproduce. You know, and like, we are, as Jordan Peterson says, when you reject a man, you are fundamentally telling him that to his core, his genes do not matter and do not want to be reproduced into the next generation. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why dudes getting rejected is like so harsh. And even for girls, you know, but like, that's what we are doing to ourselves. Our society has evolved into a place where it rejects itself more than half of the time.
Mm-hmm. And so here's something that I think is weird. I was talking to Riley about this one actually, and about how what she thought would be the right sort of line to have and where would be the right place to be. And what we landed on was you should date someone who helps you be a better person and someone who can understand what it's like to be Christ-like and wants to be Christ-like. We disagreed on the level of activity in the church they should have before you should be willing to date or get engaged.
Let me guess.
Them.
The dude said it's fine if she's only semi-active as long as she's hot, and the chick was like, "No, I want you like totally active." Was that the way it was? She was demanding more of the dude than you were demanding of the girl, because dudes are looking at looks while chicks are looking at like money and familial stability and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah. So what Riley was saying was that she thought it would be wrong to date somebody who is like to actively date somebody who's not a member of the church. I think that's okay. What I think, and what we agreed on though, was some people turn that into, okay, if I don't want to date someone who's not a member of the church, I shouldn't date somebody who like doesn't have a current temple recommend. I shouldn't date somebody who has ever broken the word of wisdom, who has ever seen pornography, right? And they end up with like these like anti-atonement sort of ideals.
Well, sometimes they end up with people who maybe they lied, or maybe they're a little bit inauthentic, or maybe they weren't showing, or like, maybe they were not uncovering the full image of who they truly were. And then they find out later on the marriage that, is a little bit of a sham.
And this
I've
is
seen
where
so many marriages now where, one of the spouses has left the church, and like there's a really, really sad Hulu, show going around where, these two women decide that they're gay and, lesbian, and now they're in a relationship with each other. And, two guys have, like they're out of luck. And I think everyone involved has left the church. It's dozens of people.
Yeah. As we praise the people that have embraced their newfound way of life and make TV shows about them, we forget to show the wake of the broken families behind them.
Yeah. Would they have done the same sort of celebration if those women had left their husbands for another man?
Yeah. Or
like the double standard's weird to me.
I've yet to see
I don't think you should ever celebrate the dissolution of a marriage that affects their kids too.
Or the
how
people
obscenely selfish is our society? That's where we're at.